Yo, what is going on, guys? Today I'm going to be giving my NFL DraftKings picks for Week 17. We have a full slate this week, a full 16-game slate. Every team is in action. Every team's on the main slate. And we've come to the point in the season. It's Week 17. We're going to have players rest. That's going to be big for the slate. We've already got news that a lot of the Rams starters are going to rest, including Todd Gurley, Jared Goff. Both of them are not expected to play. That's obviously going to open up value. We have guys that are injured. We have very big injuries we need to track, like DeMarco Murray. He could be out. That could open up Derrick Henry as a good play. Melvin Gordon could be out. That could open up Oliver as a value play. I have a feeling there's going to be a ton of value on the slate, especially at running back. I'm seeing a lot of cheap running backs. I have a feeling a lot of these top-tier running backs, some of them are probably going to rest. We obviously already know that Gurley's going to rest. Kareem Hunt might be somebody that rests. Melvin Gordon, he could be out just because of injury. And that's going to open up a lot of value, like I said. Since it is a 16-game slate this week, there's obviously going to be a ton of options at each position. I'm not going to be able to hit on every option, obviously, because the video will be like an hour long. Don't want to waste a lot of your guys' time. So I think I'm going to talk about like some of my favorite options at each position, maybe like 6 or 7 guys. I don't really want to talk about guys if I'm not going to really be considering them. So I'll just try and narrow down each position and talk about some of my favorite plays, maybe at each price range. So that way the video won't be so long and still give you guys some good information. But anyways, before we get started looking at quarterbacks, if you guys could drop a like on the video, I would really appreciate it. It means a lot. And if you are new to the channel, if this is your first time checking a video out on my channel, thank you so much for watching the video. Thank you so much for clicking on the video. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so that way you'll never miss out on any of my new vids. I'm going to be uploading picks videos during the playoff slates. I'm going to be doing a video on the wild card slate, the divisional round, the conference round, pretty much all the way up to the Super Bowl. So this won't be my last NFL video. We'll be making NFL videos during the playoffs. And I'll obviously make NBA videos daily, and I'll make MLB videos as well during the regular season at MLB. But anyways, guys, looking at quarterback this week, starting off here, up top we've got Ben Roethlisberger going up against Cleveland. Obviously, I've said this before, like to pay down at quarterback, especially in cash games. We might not have to this week because there could be a lot of value at other positions to where we don't have to pay down at quarterback. Right now, I'm seeing some good quarterback options that I like that are really cheap. So the tournament options are up top here. I don't really think I'm going to be targeting these guys in cash games. But Ben Roethlisberger in tournaments going up against the Browns, obviously Big Ben's a great play this week. The Steelers, they do have something to play for. I believe they can clinch home field advantage if the Steelers win and the Patriots lose. So the Steelers have something to play for. Their starters are going to be out on the field. They're going to be playing to win this game. And Big Ben's going to be at home. We know he plays well at home. This is a great matchup against the Browns. They have a terrible pass defense. I think Big Ben, Cam Newton are probably my favorite tournament plays on the slate. If we're talking about expensive quarterbacks, those are the guys I'm definitely going to be looking at in tournaments. Always like to go cheap at quarterback in cash games, like I said. So we'll try and find some options that are cheaper. If I can get up to Ben or get up to Cam in cash games, definitely going to be considering it. Because they do have, both of those quarterbacks have a ton of upside, and both of them have very good matchups. But looking at the cheap options, where we like to go in cash games, there's one mid-tier option I think we could target this week in tournaments. Matthew Stafford, 6,300, going up against Green Bay. He was the guy that really stood out to me. The Lions aren't expected to rest anybody, even though their season's pretty much over with. They don't really have anything to play for. Stafford's expected to play. Great matchup at home against Green Bay. This could be a game where Stafford throws for 303. Wouldn't surprise me at all. It's such a good matchup. Stafford's playing at home in the Dome where he plays very well. I think he could be a mid-tier option at 6,300. Might even be a guy we could target in cash games if enough value opens up. And we can fit him in. But looking at the value at quarterback, this is where I like some plays here. One guy that really stood out to me, Jacoby Brissett playing at home against the Texans. Great matchup for Brissett. I believe these teams faced off earlier this year, and I think I played Brissett in cash games when they did play earlier this year. Week 9 at Houston. I know I played Brissett in cash because he was really cheap, only 5,200 that week. And he put up 23 DraftKings points, had 308 yards, and 2 touchdowns, I believe. Brissett obviously hasn't been as good lately, 12, 7, 14, 13 DraftKings points his last 4 games. But some of those matchups have been pretty brutal against Baltimore, against Denver, against Jacksonville. This is a cupcake matchup at home against the Texans. Love Jacoby Brissett as a cash game cheap option we can go to. If enough value opens up, we don't have to go to cheap, then probably won't be considering him. But if I like my lineup with the guys I have and Brissett fits, he's definitely going to be a guy I'm considering in cash games. I'd say it's very likely he pays off this price. I think Brissett gets at least 18, 19 DraftKings points this week, and obviously that's good at just 5,500. So he was the really cheap option that stood out to me. You could go to like Jameis Winston at 5,800. He could be a play. The Bucs are probably going to be playing from behind. Winston's probably going to have to throw a lot, but I think I would prefer Brissett. But Winston's definitely an option at 5,800. Matt Ryan seems too cheap at 5,900, but he just hasn't done anything this year. He hasn't shown any upside. Don't think I want to go to him. So right now, those are really the quarterbacks that stand out to me. We obviously have guys like Russell Wilson, Brady, Garoppolo, Rivers, who I didn't mention. But like I said, I don't think I'm going to be talking about guys if I'm not really going to be considering them. So that's really it for quarterback for me, at least options that stand out to me. Moving on to running back, up top of this position, we got Le'Veon Bell, 10K, playing at home against Cleveland. I think we're going to be able to have enough salary to fit in Le'Veon Bell. I think there's going to be enough value on the slate. Le'Veon Bell is a great play this week, even though he's very expensive. Cleveland, their defense, it's not good. Their run defense is a little bit better. But still, it's Le'Veon Bell. This guy's going to get all the volume. He's going to get pass game work. He's going to get plenty of carries. He's just such a good play when it comes to fantasy, especially on DraftKings. He gets more targets than some receivers in the NFL. You just look at his last 4 games, 6, 10, 6, and 8 targets. He gets targeted like a receiver. He gets carries like a workhorse running back, gets usually 15 to 20 carries a game. And I believe last year against Cleveland, Le'Veon Bell put up like 50 DraftKings points. I think it was like a snow game. With no Antonio Brown, we could expect Le'Veon to be heavily involved in the pass game. We obviously know he's going to get the carries. He's a great play this week, probably my favorite play on the slate, not really going out on a limb. I think we're going to have enough salary to fit him in. So if I'm paying up at running back, especially in cash games, I'm just going to jam in Le'Veon. He has such a high floor. He has such a high ceiling. Just a great play at this position. And especially with Todd Gurley expected to rest, we don't really have to worry about trying to decide between Bell or Gurley since they're similarly priced. Just play Bell, Gurley, not expected to play like I said. We do have other options that we could go to, like Zeke against the Eagles, even though that's a tough matchup. LaShawn McCoy could be a play against the Dolphins. Alvin Kamara in tournaments could be a play against Tampa Bay. But right now, I think if I'm paying up a running back, I'm just going to Le'Veon Bell. I think we have really good cheap options we can go to for value plays. I have a feeling we're going to be playing 3 running backs this week, obviously putting one in our flex. Just because there's a lot of good plays at this position, a lot of value. And if I'm going to pay up at this position, I'm just going to go to Le'Veon Bell up top. Obviously, he is my favorite option of all the expensive running backs. I'd say if you don't want to pay up for Bell and you want one of these options maybe for tournaments, I think my favorite would probably be LaShawn McCoy for tournaments at 8K. Him and Kenyon Drake are the 2 options I really like. Kenyon Drake's in a great spot playing up against Buffalo. If Damian Williams does not come back, Drake's a great play this week. He's going to get all the work. He didn't have that good of a game last week against KC. Only ran the ball 13 times, got 3 targets, only 5.7 DraftKings points. Definitely a bounce-back spot against Buffalo. Terrible run defense. Drake put up 23 DraftKings points against this team a couple weeks ago. He's in a great spot at 7,200. You can go to him. But like I said, I'm just going to jam in Le'Veon this week, not really considering these guys, at least for cash games. You do have Dion Lewis at 6,800 in that mid-tier, who could be a play again if James White and Rex Burkhead are out. With White and Burkhead out last week, Dion Lewis got all the work, 24 carries, got 5 receptions as well, 5 targets, put up 35 DraftKings points last week. I played him in cash games. With no White, with no Burkhead, Dion Lewis is going to be the number 1 back. He's going to get all the carries. We know he's going to be involved in the passing game. He's just a great play. Even though at his price range, it's going to be hard to consider him because we just have so much value at this position to where we can play like Le'Veon Bell and then 2 value running backs. But maybe if you only like one of the value running backs, you could play like Le'Veon, then you could play Lewis and then play one of the value running backs at your flex. That could be a way to go. Probably going to save Lewis for tournaments because I just feel like Le'Veon Bell's the cash game option. But if no White, no Burkhead, Lewis is a great option this week at 6,800 going up against the Jets. And then talking about the value running backs, the couple of value running backs I want to mention. First off, Derrick Henry, 5,500 going up against Jacksonville. Derrick Henry going to be one of the good value plays we want to go to if DeMarco Murray is out this week. Right now, as I'm recording this video on Thursday, we haven't got any news if Murray is expected to play. I know he didn't practice on Wednesday. I have a good feeling he's not going to play, and if he doesn't, we can expect plenty of work for Derrick Henry. And this is a good matchup against Jacksonville. Their run defense isn't nearly as good as their pass defense. I have the feeling we're going to be playing like Le'Veon Bell, Derrick Henry, and then one of the value running backs we'll talk about in a second. At least in cash games, I think that's going to be the way we go. If no DeMarco Murray this week, Henry is a great value play at 5,500 if you're looking for a cheap running back. Then talking about the 2 cheap running backs, I think there are 2, at least on Thursday as I'm recording this video. There are two cheap running backs that are like in this 4K cheap price range that we can go to. The first cheap running back I want to mention is Brandon Oliver at 4K going up against Oakland. As I'm recording this video on Thursday, Melvin Gordon is questionable for this game. If he misses, that's going to open up Brandon Oliver as a value play at just 4K. He should be in line for a heavy workload with no Melvin Gordon. He should get plenty of carries. Should see a little bit of pass game work as well. He's a great value option at 4K. If Melvin Gordon is out, he's going to be a guy that we have to consider just because of how cheap he is, how much work he's going to get. He's going to be a cash game option. And then the other cash game option with Todd Gurley expect to rest this week. We're going to see plenty of Malcolm Brown, plenty of work for him at just 3,900 in a matchup against the 49ers. They've already come out and said that Malcolm Brown is expected to be the lead back. He's expected to get most of the work. Obviously, he's not going to get Todd Gurley's workload. He's not going to get 20-plus carries and 5-10 targets. But I can reasonably project him for 10 to 15 carries, if not more than that. Should see a couple targets as well. And I have a feeling he is also going to be a value play that we want to consider, especially at 3,900. If you play him, you play Brandon Oliver, that's going to give you so much salary, especially if you do that in cash games. You can fit in Le'Veon Bell, maybe an expensive quarterback, maybe an expensive receiver if you want to do that. A lot of value at running back. Like I said, I think we're going to be playing 3 running backs this week. Definitely a position where we can find some good value plays. That's really it for running back, at least the options that really stand out to me that I'm going to be looking to target this week. Go ahead and move on to receiver. Talk about some expensive options here. Like I said, I have a feeling we're going to have plenty of value on the slate. We can fit in a stud receiver if we want to. And I think my favorite out of all the stud receivers, the guys that are like 7K and above, my favorite this week is most likely Julio Jones, 8,200 going up against Carolina. Julio is listed as questionable as I'm recording this video on Thursday, but I have a good feeling Julio's going to play. Great matchup against the Panthers. He did torch this team earlier this year. Didn't find the end zone, but still managed to put up 6 catches for 118 yards, 20.8 DraftKings points when he faced Carolina earlier this year. This is a big game when it comes to playoff hopes. Carolina and Atlanta both fighting for their playoff lives. Both teams need to win this game. So I think this game definitely has stack appeal. Could be very high scoring. Atlanta's playing at home. We know they do put up points at home. Julio plays well at home. And in a great matchup against the Panthers, I would say he's probably my favorite stud receiver. You obviously have DeAndre Hopkins, who's a great play against the Colts. Keenan Allen against Oakland. He's a great play. Michael Thomas against Tampa Bay. He's a good option. But I can't play all the expensive receivers. If I have to choose just one, I think I'm going with Julio Jones this week. But if we get news on Sunday that Julio's not going to play, I think I'd pivot to probably DeAndre Hopkins for 200 more. Hopkins is in a great spot against the Colts. We know how bad their secondary is. Hopkins continues to produce, even though he's got a terrible quarterback in TJ Yates. Still gets the job done, still gets plenty of targets. But right now, I'm thinking my favorite stud receiver is Julio Jones this week at 8,200 going up against the Panthers. I think Juju Smith-Schuster could be a tournament play at 7,300 going up against the Browns. I don't know if I want to pay that much for him in cash games. But with no Antonio Brown, Juju's going to see a ton of targets. And this is obviously a great matchup against the Browns. They have a terrible pass defense. Juju could be a tournament play if you want to do the Steelers onslaught this week. You want to play Ben, Bell, Juju, even Martavis Bryant. You could definitely do that. The Steelers are most likely going to put up a ton of points here. So Juju in tournaments, don't mind him at 7,300 and a great matchup against the Browns. And if we're looking in this mid-tier, there is an option that I absolutely love in this mid-tier. 5,900. I love T.Y. Hilton this week going up against the Texans. This was the game where T.Y. went off. I believe it was week 9, against Houston. He put up 37.5 DraftKings points against this team. 5 catches for 175 yards and 2 touchdowns. Just such a good matchup for T.Y. He's playing at home. We know T.Y. plays well at home. He plays well in the dome. I don't mind pairing him with Brissett at all in cash games. That's really cheap quarterback-receiver combo that has a lot of upside. I think T.Y. is going to be a pretty popular play this week, but I think he makes a ton of sense. Great cash game play. The targets have been there lately. He's a good tournament play as well. He has so much upside. Really like T.Y. Hilton at 5,900 if we're talking about receivers that are in that mid-tier. You also got guys that are a little bit cheaper that could be plays, like D.D. Westbrook in a great matchup against the Titans. You got Keelan Cole at 5,700 who's just been crushing lately. He could be a play if we're looking at this mid-tier. He's been getting a lot of targets lately, 9, 13 targets his last 2 games, 34, 19 DraftKings points, been really consistent lately. If Marquise Lee, Allen Hurns don't come back, we're definitely going to want to consider Keelan Cole, going to want to consider D.D. Westbrook. But if I have to choose just one of those 5K receivers, my favorite definitely this week is T.Y. Hilton at 5,900. And if we're trying to find value receiver, Don't know if this position we really want to go cheap at. I think the position we try and want to save at is running back. A lot of good value running backs to target. I think at receiver this week we probably want to go to the mid-tier or just look to pay up for a couple options. You could go to a guy like Josh Doctson against the Giants. I know Doxson's been playing a ton of snaps lately. The targets been inconsistent, but he did see 13 targets his last game. Only caught 2 of his catches, but still saw 13 targets against Denver, 14.1 DraftKings points. I don't think Doxson's really a guy we're forcing in, especially if we're playing cash games. I think the value we want this week is at running back. Don't think we're going cheap at receiver, at least in cash. But Josh Doctson could be a cheap play at 4,400. He's been getting targets lately. Great matchup against the Giants. Think we could go to him. But that's really what I see at receiver. Obviously, I didn't talk about a lot of guys, but there's just so many options this week. I can't hit on every single player. My favorite option up top, definitely Julio Jones. If he doesn't play, he's listed as questionable. If he doesn't play, I'd probably pivot to DeAndre Hopkins. You got Juju, who could be a tournament play, 7,300. Got those good mid-tier options, the 6K, 5K range. T.Y. Hilton, I think, is a great play this week. Could go to D.D. Westbrook, maybe even Marquise Lee. If he plays, you could play him. You got Keelan Cole as well. Definitely want to get some exposure to this Jacksonville passing game. Tennessee, their pass defense has been so bad lately. Jacksonville's going to put up points. Their receivers are going to get fantasy points. D.D. Westbrook, Keelan Cole, Marquise Lee. These guys are all guys we have to consider, but like I said, T.Y. Hilton at 5,900, definitely my favorite receiver in that mid-tier. But let's go ahead and move on to tight end. Look at tight end. Look at this position. Obviously, we have good tournament plays here up top. Travis Kelce, Rob Gronkowski. These guys are great tournament plays if you're paying up a tight end. That's usually something a lot of people don't do in tournaments, so you're definitely going to have a contrarian lineup if you do that. I've said this before, I always like to go cheap in cash games, at least at tight end. I like to go cheap, save some money here. Not sure if we're going to need to, but if we do, there are good cheap options we can go to, like in this mid-tier and sub 4K. But we know Gronk's a great play. We know Travis Kelce is a great play. If you're paying up at this position, these guys are great options. But talking about this mid-tier options that we want to go to here, I think Jack Doyle at 4,700 is a guy that really stands out to me going up against the Texans. Great matchup. Doyle's been getting plenty of targets lately. 18 targets his last 2 games, 11-9 DraftKings points. I believe Doyle had a very nice game earlier this year against Houston. Put up 14 DraftKings points, pretty consistent. 8 catches for 63 yards, got 9 targets in that game. I think we can consider a lot of these Colts guys like Brissett, T.Y., Jack Doyle. I think these guys are going to be options we want to go to. We want to attack the Texans defense through the air, and a lot of these Colts players are very cheap, and I think they make a ton of sense this week. So Jack Doyle could be a play at 4,700. You have Eric Ebron there at 4,500, who's been playing well lately. I think I prefer Doyle for 200 more, but if we look at Ebron's game log, I know he's been playing a lot better lately, been getting some targets. Last 3 games, 11, 7, 8 targets, 18, 14, 19 DraftKings points. Eric Ebron could be an option at 4,500 in that mid-tier, but like I said, I prefer Doyle for 4,700. Ebron's 4,500. I prefer Doyle for 4,700. You got Vernon Davis in a great matchup against the Giants, but I don't think I want to go there. I think I prefer Doyle if we're talking about tight ends in that 4K range. And then 4K and under, looking for cheap value plays here. I think Charles Clay, 3,700, going to be a tight end value play a lot of people consider. Been getting a lot of targets his last 2 weeks, 9 and 10 targets, 11 and 7 DraftKings points. Great matchup against Miami this week. I think if we're looking for a cheap tight end, if we want to save money at this position, we want to go sub 4K. Charles Clay makes the most sense in my opinion at 3,700. If we're just talking about value tight ends, I think he's my favorite option. If we're talking about guys that are 4K and under. And I think that's really it for tight end. Not going to be targeting any of these 2K options. Unless we get news that some tight ends are going to rest, then maybe we could go to them. But right now, obviously, Kelce, Gronk are great tournament plays. I really like Jack Doyle in that mid-tier. You got Eric Ebron there as well. Vernon Davis is in a great matchup against the Giants. And then for value, I think Charles Clay, 3,700, is a good option against the Dolphins. But moving on to defense, talking about this position, this is another position we want to try and save some money at. Usually don't like to pay for defense. We do have great options up top, though. You got the Jaguars playing against the Titans, going up against Mariota, who has not looked good this year. You got the Vikings playing at home against the Bears. You got the Steelers at home against the Browns. Great options up top. But I think I'm going to be saving those guys for tournaments unless we have enough value to where we can pay up for defense. We can definitely do that. But talking about these mid-tier options, this is where I usually like to go, at least in cash games. Try and find some options here. A couple options that really stand out to me. First off, the Patriots at home against the Jets, against Bryce Petty. great option this week at 3,500. I think them and the Seahawks are the two plays that really stand out to me in that mid tier. The Seahawks are playing at home against Drew Stanton against the Cardinals. They're in a great spot and they're cheap at 3,400. I'd say my favorite two defenses in that mid tier are the Patriots and the Seahawks at 3,400. Those are two defenses I'm really going to have my eye on this week. And if we are looking for value and we want to go cheap at defense, need to maybe save some money here if you want to fit in a couple studs and you want to save money at defense. I'm not really seeing a lot of value defenses that really catch my eye that I think are great plays. If we're talking about tournaments, we could go to the Broncos at home against KC. I know KC, they might be resting some guys this week, which could lead to the Broncos getting a much better matchup. Alex Smith, usually don't like to target him because he doesn't turn the ball over a ton. But if the Chiefs are going to rest some guys this week, we could go to the Broncos at 2,900 playing at home. Maybe the Dolphins at home, we could go to them. But right now, I think defense, we might want to go to the mid-tier at this position or just try and pay up. Like I said, I think the Seahawks, the Patriots are probably my two favorite options in that mid-tier. And then talking about the expensive options, my favorite of the top three, definitely going to be the Steelers at home against the Browns. The Browns are just so bad. The Steelers are playing at home. They get pressure on the quarterback. They'll force turnovers. They're my favorite expensive play at 3,900. I think this is a position we do want to try and go to the mid-tier or pay up if we can. But yeah, guys, I think that's pretty much it for the defense. I think that's pretty much it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully the video isn't too long. I tried not to talk about too many players. I know it's a 16-game slate, and I probably skipped over some guys that you like. And if that is the case, make sure you just leave a comment on the video or just hit me up on Twitter. If you have any questions about a certain player that you like, just leave them in the comments or message me on Twitter, and I'll be sure to get back to you as soon as I can. But yeah, guys, I think that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for watching, and good luck this week, guys. Peace.